Darby Kohler. My world is better. My world is better. Darby Kohler.
My world is better because of all of you. I have literally blossomed in the last 3 to 4 months with my new endeavors as becoming an expert radio sales professional and getting to meet so many different types of people. Toastmasters has really opened my eyes and made my world better. I am blessed with a beautiful family, the most wonderful husband, and loving support. And I feel as though every day I am truly blessed that I have the opportunity to meet each and every one of you. And you make my world better. And in the smallest, most notable ways, it happens that you are just the shining light of my weekend, believe it or not. It's wild how the world circles around and things come about, and you have opportunities like this to represent and be a part of something so phenomenal. But today is just the beginning of the next and the next and the next. So each day I build upon what I am truly blessed with. And you, my friends, make my world better. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Jan Thomas. My world is better. My world is better. Jan Thomas.
Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. My world is better because I'm a Toastmaster. When I started in Toastmasters in 1988, I was a member of a charter club. And I made the decision at that point to see whether or not I was going to continue with Toastmasters or I was going to go back and get my master's degree. And as time proceeded along, I found that Toastmasters was the better choice for me. So I didn't go back and get my master's degree. I was area governor in 1991, and Toastmasters showed me how to organize meetings, how to encourage people to help you to do exactly what you wanted them to do. You get up to somebody and you tell them, you know, I think you would be really good at this. And they're honored that you ask them to do that. And they say, sure, I'll help you out. You give them an outline of what you want done, and you say, here's the bottom line. However you want to do it, you go ahead and do it. And Toastmasters showed me that. It helped me in my work. I was able to give presentations. I worked for the city of St. Petersburg, and I'm retired from there. And when they needed to give out employee awards, they called on me. And I went before council, and I gave employee awards. So Toastmasters has definitely shaped my life for the better. And I am very pleased to be here today, competing and telling everyone in the room, this was an excellent choice. Madam Contest Master.
Paul Edwards. My world is better. My world is better. Paul Edwards.
We are in a country, a beautiful country, the United States of America. as big as we think this country is, each of us seems to have our own small space. Your friend will say, you're living in your own world. And I said, yes. Do you realize that what might be a problem to one person is fun to another? There's a parochial saying which says, every man think his burden is the heaviest. One other person says, what is joke to one is dead to another. The fact is, even though they might say it's a big world, some will say it's a small world. The important thing is, you and I are here. We're here today. If you pinch your skin, pinch your hand, you feel it. But how it feels to you is different to each person. The important thing is we have to make our own space in this world. We have to cultivate our own lives. We have to live our own dreams. I can't have a dream for you. You can't have a dream for me. I have to have my own dream. And when my life here on earth is done, the question is, what will they remember of you? What will your children say? Will they say, Paul was a good guy? Will they say Paul was a joker? What will they say of you? You can't live my life. I can't live yours. We all have to live our own lives. We all have to do and make this world what you want it to be. My world is better because I am enjoying the life that I choose to live. I am doing the things that I want to do, and I'm being who I want to be. My fellow guests, Toastmasters, enjoy yourselves. Live your lives. Let it be known that you are who you want to be. Thank you.
Alex Peck. My world is better. My world is better. Alex Peck.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests. That's what we're here for today, because we found out that our world is better. Our world's better because we're joiners. We like to join organizations. We like to fraternize with each other, men and women. We like to tell each other about our lives and what has endeared us to different hobbies, things we like to do with our families, and we like to share those with people. What's made my world better is working out here at the Space Center for 32 years. Maybe many of you worked out there as well, and perhaps your life is more enriched because of that, and you get to share those stories. You go out west on vacation, and you're riding on the plane, and the people next to you ask you, what do you do, or what's your job? And you get to tell them that you worked on the space shuttle for 32 years. They're like, oh my gosh, you worked at the space shuttle program. How awesome is that? I say, yes. I love to go to work. I love my job. Not very many people can say that because they don't go do what they love. I was doing what I loved, and it made my world better, and it made everyone else's world better. When I went to work, I didn't have a sense that I was working for my company. I had a sense that I was working for those astronauts. I was making their world better. I was making our children's world better by embracing science and math and getting those children involved when we had Bring Your Daughter to Work Day or Bring Your Child to Work Day. One of the things I always liked to teach them was a good handshake. the people would bring them around and say, "This is Miss Peck," and they'd kind of do one of these, whether it was a boy or a girl. And I felt the need to tell them about a good handshake. I was like, listen, if you don't learn anything else today, just learn about the handshake. Grasp someone's hand. Don't kill them with it. Just grasp them, look them in the eye. It's a sign of sincerity, and shake their hand, whether it's a man or a woman. Years later, these children got older, and they'd still be coming to the take your daughter to work, take your child to work, and they'd come and shake my hand. It was the first thing they did. Think about it.
Russell Lamb.
Thank you, Gail, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My world is better because of my family. My family brings so many unexpected things into my life, especially my kids. For those who aren't aware, I've got 3 kids. The youngest starts with 2, then 5, then 7. And the neatest thing about having kids is you don't know what the day is going to bring. One of the current events going on in our life is we're trying to potty train my 2-year-old. And that's always a fun experience because you forget how simple things become big things. And it started with, because she had 2 older sisters, we had leftover pull-ups. For those who aren't aware, it's like training underwear, but it's got a diaper absorbency. She wanted pull-ups one day. And so we decided, well, to get a pull-up, you have to sit on the toilet. She was all happy with that. And then the next time, she's sitting on the toilet, and suddenly she pees. She hasn't peed in the toilet before. It was a complete surprise. And she looks around and like, what happened? And we're like, she used the toilet. So we start clapping. We get a parade with our whole family. We come marching up through the house. We reward her. She gets candy when she uses the toilet. And she's just excited. She's like, oh, I want to do that again. The next time she sits on the toilet, nothing. She gets her pull-up and she's like, where's my candy? And you realize that life is like that. You never know what the day is going to bring. You never know what reward you're going to get. And if you haven't figured out which rewards tie with which actions, then the next time you're like, where's my reward? And you get nothing. My life is better from having kids, the experiences that it brings, and recognizing that rewards come for small things, and small things lead to big things. Gail.
Crystal Boudreau. The Rose Tattoo. The Rose Tattoo. Crystal Boudreau.
Mr. Toastmaster, distinguished guests and honorariums, and sister and fellow Toastmasters, I am so glad that you're here with me today to celebrate my 77th birthday. All of you, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and even my little grandchild, great-great-grandchild is here. You're so cute. And Jojo, where are you? Oh, Jojo, do I see a tattoo peeking out from under your shirt there? Jojo got a tattoo, but my mother wouldn't let me have one. Let me tell you about my mother and me and tattoos. I tried to stand up against her one time and I said, I want a tattoo. And she said no. And I said, I want it anyway. And she said, well, now, darling, look, tattoos are permanent. I know you want to tattoo Ronnie Huffman's name on your shoulder, like the sailors are doing. It was during World War II. I was 9 and I was in love. And I said, I'm going to do it anyway. And she said, listen, if you put 1 drop of ink on your body, I will give you such a tattoo on your behind, you'll never forget it. I changed my mind quickly. But Mama didn't change her mind. And what I didn't know is that she was tattooing me all the time. There was a time when my mother was very mean as a girl. And to stop being mean, she surrounded herself with icons to help her remember that angels were always around. And she told me, I have these angels in the house, so you will remember as you grow up that you are part angel and you have a responsibility to others. This is one of the angels that my mother had. And there's a little broken wing on it. I'm sure that was a wing that I broke off. But throughout my life, I was surrounded by her angels and thinking about being the kind of person she was teaching me to be. Another thing about my mom, as a girl, she played a game called Bid Whist, and her partner played the wrong card. My mother cussed her out. No, wait, Grandma didn't cuss for long, but she did cuss the girl out and told the girl to leave her house. But she didn't want me to be that way. And so my mother had a shelf that you put these pretty teacups on. I don't think any of you are old enough to remember that. But she had these beautiful cups on her shelf. And when she would have guests at home, she would take these cups down and serve them tea to remember to be warm and friendly to her guests. My mother had a love for roses. There's a rose on the side of this cup. We ate Sunday dinners out of these plates. This was our Sunday china. It's very faint because it's almost as old as I am, but there's a rose. I inherited this from her. And she planted roses in the garden, all over the garden. She had roses in the spinach patch. She had roses in the turnip patch. She had roses growing up with the corn. Thorny, yes. Hurtful, yes. But my mom said, if you're careful and you look for the good, no matter where you are and what the situation is, you will always find a blessing, because life, like roses, blooms goodness in its season. Another thing my mother said about roses and flowers, when she was stressed, usually because my daddy stayed out too late, she would go out and water the roses. And she said, I'll breathe on the flowers and they'll breathe back on me and reduce that stress. So I practiced my mother's principles. I surrounded myself with angels. I brought a big one for you to see today. Someone said it belongs at the top of a Christmas tree. I have them all over my house to remember. Yes, I'm part angel, like all of you are, and I have a responsibility to others. And when people come to my home for counseling or just for friendly visits, I'll reach upon that imaginary shelf and get one of those cups down. Tea, anyone? And even though I cannot grow roses where I live in the condo, if someone has a birth or a death or some special acknowledgement in their life, and I want to congratulate them or send them a message of peace and love, I will mail a rose bush to them so that they too can have their own garden to go out and breathe on the flowers. Now, as beautiful as your tattoos are, I'm willing to bet that if you were to put on the mantle of this woman and take the ink that she used and pierce yourself with those things of beauty, you might have more joy in your life than any ink could ever put into your body. Mr. Hunt.
Spitzer. The power of good. The power of good. Judd Spitzer.
Martin Luther King gave this tremendous speech over 40 years ago about, I have a dream. And everybody remembers it. Why do they remember it? Because it was done on the media of the day. It was broadcast on radio, it was broadcast on TV, and even today, we see it on social media. Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, you too can use media, and today, social media, for the power of good. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, you don't want to put anything out there on social media because some employer's going to find out that you went down to Key West and had a really good time. Believe me, they're not. And even if they do, just it really isn't going to matter. You are who you are. And social media will not destroy your life because there's so much more that you can do with social media that's terrific. There's fantastic things that you can do with social media. And one thing you can do is you can send your message out there. How many people have been online and they saw someone hold up a sign, they said, if I can get 1 million likes, we can get that for cancer. Well, someone take a picture. I'd like to get 1 million likes for Toastmasters and promote speaking. If I could get that, maybe I can get that trip to Kuala Lumpur. Right? That's what I want. Maybe Dee or Carol will send me there. So there's the idea of going viral. And it's absolutely important to send a message out there. That's one thing you can do. But not everything is about being viral and trying to be the person who gets 1 million likes. It doesn't really play. Because most of us have a few hundred friends maybe we have 50 friends, whatever it is. But we have friends on there who are going through different things. And particularly, I have a lot of friends that are not here in Florida. They're in California. They're all over the United States. And social media lets me talk and see what they're doing. And particularly, when things are not as good as they could be, you get to find out. So I have a friend who lives in California, and her name's Darcy. She has a nephew who was kidnapped. And it was a horrible thing. But she got on social media and said, hey, we know who did it. It was the ex-husband that took this kid, kidnapped him, took him away. And he was crazy, and there was all sorts of stuff going on, but she had photos, she knew the car, and she shared this with everybody. And what we, her friends, were able to do, were able to put the word out, because I have friends that are not her friends, that live in that area. And so by me sharing her message and getting the word out, believe it or not, social media was one of the ways that they located this guy and got her nephew back into the hands of the family. So it was a success, and I think that a lot of us feel that we played a role in helping retrieve somebody who needed help. Social media is also not just about talking to lots of people. It's also about the one-on-one experience. When people get on there, you're really talking to one person. That's who we're trying to reach, is one individual. You may see a lot of things, fun photos of food, which are awesome, and you know about that. But it's also inspiration, and some people will post a lot of inspirational things. So you get online and you feel a little good. But if you have friends on there and you notice that they post a lot, and then all of a sudden they disappear off the planet, do you ever wonder what's going on with those people? They post it all the time, and now I don't see anything. That's your clue. That is something for you to engage your friends, and when you see them, you can reach out to them. That's your point, to say, hey, I know something's going on. And that's how you can use social media. And you don't have to use just Facebook or Twitter or whatever you're using. You can use the phone. At that point, engage them. I have a friend, her name's Teresa, and she was going through job transition, and she didn't know what was going on. She lost her job, she was worried, she was feeling depressed. And we were engaged a lot. She lived in California, so I couldn't see her regularly. So I used social media to notice it, called her up, tried to pick her up and inspire her. And by doing that, it helped turn things around. One of the great quotes that I've seen online, which really inspired me, is the idea that people want to be your sun and bring you light throughout the day. But me personally, I would rather be your moon and bring you light in your darkest hour. Martin Luther King, he inspired people. He used media of the day. He made people realize that we're all together in this big experiment of life. And that if we treat each other with respect and as equals, that we're going to be better. And you can use social media for the power of good to find people who need your help and inspire people to go beyond and be better. So whether it's the media of the day, today it's social media, tomorrow it may be something else, I implore you, use it for the power of good. Mr. Toastmaster.
Dwight Fole. Dwight Fole. Dwight the Latin.
David. David loved golf. He played it all the time. In fact, one time he showed up a little bit right before he was supposed to tee off. His friends were already there. He did not get to practice. Gets up to the first tee, swings way off to the right. He explains to them that he didn't get to practice. Therefore, he drops another one right down the fairway. A couple weeks later, he's with his friends. He's driving this time. It was a rough road, jittery, there was fog. He was nervous. He gets to the first tee, hits it, boom, off to the right. He explains to them that he drove. Therefore, he was a little jittery, drops another one, hits another one. This became a pattern. So much so that he gained a reputation. Does anyone know what this guy's last name is? Golfers, help me out here. Mulligan, right? David Mulligan became the world's famous cheater in golf. Now, why is this a big deal? The reason why it's a big deal is this. In golf, it's a game of integrity. You keep your own score. There's stories about how people have lost a tournament because they gave themselves a penalty stroke that no one else saw. That's golf. Now, the sad thing about him being known as world's greatest golf cheater is the fact that David Mulligan was the manager of the Waldorf Astoria in the 20s. He helped shape what is the expectation of hotels at that level, restaurants at that level. He went on to start another chain called the Biltmore. Extremely good businessman. But how is his known? How is his legacy? The golf's greatest cheater. Mr. Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, future Toastmasters. I'm here to tell you and ask you 3 questions. Question number 1, did David Mulligan want to be known as golf's greatest cheater? No. Question number 2, could he have changed that legacy? I'm here to talk to you and I'll tell you yes, and I'll prove it to you. And number 3 is a question that I asked myself that I want each one of you to ask yourself. The question is, what does it mean to pull a Dwight? Or put your name in there. What does it mean to speak Melvinese? What does it mean to pull a parpar? What does it mean to do a Cedric? If you don't like the answer, you can do something about it. When I asked that question, realized, whoa, the answer's already out there. I grew up a family with 7 boys, and believe me, young men, when we don't have a lot to do, we find new ways to maim ourselves, right? That's the job. Whenever there was an opportunity to maim ourselves, and my brothers thought it was too extreme. Dwight! And I came and said, oh, that's cool, I'll try it. Needless to say, I knew the names of the emergency room nurses by name. I once got there and said, oh, where's Miss Judy? She's off today. Her day's off on Friday, right? I knew their schedules. One time I walked in, my mom's sitting there with her friends, and they're sharing. Head wounds bleed a lot, in case you don't know. I'm walking in like this, and my mom looks at me and says, Dwight, get off the carpet! And the mother and women are saying, whoa, she's extreme. It just happened all the time. She got used to that head wound. Now, I want to tell you that in high school, I realized that getting maimed hurt. Weird. So I stopped maiming myself, and by getting rid of that attitude, I got myself another nickname. I was the middle child. I was the peacemaker. I oftentimes did funny jokes, tried to ease tension. I even had Dwightful attire, right? I was called Dwightful. Oh, that's a Dwightful comment. Rather than my mom saying, when anyone got hurt, did you do a Dwight again? Come on! And that was true. That's what happened. Now, I changed, but is that reality? Does that actually happen? Well, my daughter was recently going to one of her first dances, and I said, hey, I used to be quite the Travolta. And she goes, the actor? She had no idea that Travolta danced. Why? One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Plato. It says, if anyone speaks ill of you, or if anyone speaks something that you want spoke, live so that no one will believe them. Now, Travolta might be an old person example, all right? Okay. Let's try Miley Cyrus. You know, a daughter might turn and say, don't be a Miley, right? Miley changed. A lot of people in here probably don't know that 5 years ago she was the perfect Disney girl. You knew that, Disney? Okay. So she was the perfect Disney girl that every father would want to have. Today, maybe not. Let me give you another example. One person that didn't change. When you need to fix something, you MacGyver it, right? Everyone knows what that is. So what could David Mulligan do? I'll tell you. He had to know that in the world of golf, he was getting a reputation. He should have listened to Plato. If anyone spoke ill of him, he should have lived so no one will believe it. He should have stopped. So I ask you this. If you go throughout your life and you don't like what Melvinese is, if you don't like what pulling a Papart is, if you don't like pulling what a Cedric is, change it. If you do like it, rock on and roll with it. But if you don't like it, live so no one will believe it.
Fighting with biological invasion. Fighting with biological invasion. Siki Lee.
Mr. Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome friends. Invasive species are foreign animals or plants that may mess up local ecological environment. Every year, governments have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on dealing with biological invasion and protecting local ecology. For example, Chinese mitten crabs have occupied Thames River, London, for years. They destroy the riverbed, breed quickly, and have no enemies in the river. The crabs have driven British crazy. British government decided to take some actions. First, they tried to learn some experiences from other countries who have the same problem. Americans used to kill the same crab species by poisoning the rivers. They failed. A lot of native aquatics died except mitten crabs. Crabs still live in the river happily. British did not want to have another try, of course. After years of research, some British proposed a few methods. Method 1, let's eat them. A reporter was the first British to taste meat-and crabs. He wrote a column describing how to eat crabs and how delicious they are. But no British agreed with him, nor even wanted to try. Method 2, let's send them back to China. Chinese like eating the meat and crabs, so British plan to fish the crabs with fishing net and sell them back to China. However, with the fishing net, they captured a kind of endangered fish too. The point was, the number of endangered fish was much less than crabs in Thames River. To protect their precious fish, method 2 failed. Method 3, let's sell them to local Chinese. There was a meeting held in London in 2009 to discuss if they can commercialize the meat and crabs. On the meeting, someone asked, what if Chinese become addicted to meat and crabs? Will the business breed crabs in other rivers? They didn't want to take the risk. In the end, the meeting was over without any results. Today, millions of purebred Chinese meat and crabs still live happily in Thames River. Thousands of miles away, when Chinese heard about this news, we really felt sorry for the British and the crabs. If this happened in China, we solve it like a piece of cake. We'd eat them. Actually, this would never happen in China. Each autumn, when it is the best time to taste meat and crabs, one crab is worth 100 to 1,000 Chinese dollars, equals to 15 to 150 US dollars. If I was in China 4 months later, I would dress and make up to taste the crab. Chinese meat and crabs are not considered an invasion in China, but we do have other biological invasions, and we solve these problems with the same solution. For example, the crayfish. They have a strong vitality, living in rivers, lakes, fields, and other lands. No one are interested in eating them because they have a raw taste and only a little meat. Until Chinese chefs cook them with chili, pepper, ginger, and other spices, crayfish becomes a favorite snack. The same thing happens to bullfrog, whose hometown is North America. Yeah. Local people never think of them as a kind of food because of their terrible appearance and horrible taste. You don't eat frogs, do you? No cheese nor any sauce can cover the raw taste. Here come the Chinese chefs again. They cook the frog with the same way as they cook the crayfish. Since then, bullfrog is no longer a trouble in China. There are some species that we don't like or cannot eat, such as French snail. It's obviously not Chinese style. So, we sell them back to France. And the green grass, even Chinese cannot cook them into delicious food. But we find it a proper position in the food chain. We feed it to pigs, cows, and other animals. Then we can eat their meat. Fellow Toastmasters, this is a highly efficient, low-cost, and environmentally friendly way to eliminate biological invasion. When scientists could not deal with these problems, Chinese chefs make their own way, cook them into delicious food, and encourage people to eat them. Perhaps other countries could benefit by this Chinese solution. Bravo! Let's eat!
Sometimes you have to give up. Rob Ellis.
If you came to Houston to be in radio, what are you doing here? She asks, behind the counter at the restaurant where I'm filling out an application to be a waiter. It's a fair question. I did come to Houston to be in radio, so why am I filling out an application to be a waiter? Well, she says, sometimes you just have to give up. Mr. Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, give up, I think to myself. I'm not giving up. This is just plan B. It's 1990. And like many small market DJs, my overriding ambition is to be on the air in the bigs, in the majors. But I've tried the traditional routes. I've sent out over 200 resumes and demo tapes and received back exactly 2 replies, both of which were, "Don't call us, we'll call you." One day my Aunt Terrell says, "Rob, maybe you just need to be like an aspiring actor who goes to New York or Hollywood and just stays until something happens." And I think she's right. That's what I need to do. So I moved back in with my parents for a few months. I save every penny. I quit my job at WNVL in Nicholasville, Kentucky. I pack up my Subaru Justy automobile with all of my worldly belongings. And if any of you don't remember the Subaru Justy, if you put it next to a Prius, it makes the Prius look like an SUV. I found out that one of my best friends, Chris, that his sister, Alex, is a sales rep at KLOL in Houston, Texas. He's a sales rep, just like Darby, who we heard from earlier today. Houston is the 4th largest market in the country at this time. So I roll into Houston with a cardboard box full of resumes and demo tapes. Well, believe it or not one radio station in Houston had heard that Rob Ellis was coming to town. But at least this time, I got 20 out of 20 replies instead of 2 out of 200. That's progress. But in the meantime, I have to eat. So plan B is why I'm at the restaurant filling out the application. Plan B is get a job as a waiter until you get your big break. And I realize at this moment that I really am just like an aspiring actor who goes to New York or Hollywood. Because just like an aspiring actor who goes to New York or Hollywood, I'm going to be waiting tables. Or am I? Now keep in mind, this was before I joined Toastmasters, so my people skills were, shall we say, somewhat undeveloped. But I get my first clue that I might not be the quickest study in the restaurant business when I almost don't make it out of waiter training. This is when I discover the grim reality that some people, even people with college degrees like me, don't make it out of waiter training. My second clue is my tips, which are so lousy that I realize if this doesn't change, I'm going to starve. That's pretty serious when you're in the restaurant business. But my third clue is when a customer leaves a note underneath a pile of pennies on one of my tables. And the note says, if we had wanted attitude with our meal, we would have ordered it. Plan B is starting to unravel. I do have a plan C. Plan C is go back to Kentucky with my tail between my legs and explain to everyone why I couldn't make it in the big city. Well, I tried. I went to all the radio stations. I even got a job as a waiter to make ends meet. But you wouldn't believe what these people expected me to do. They expected me to run my tail off for them. They expected me to act like I liked them. And they expected me to not take it personally when occasionally someone was short or rude with me. Oh yeah, I've got a great alibi. So I did a lot of soul searching and self-examination. And I decided that sometimes you have to give up. And so I realized that I was going to have to give up. I was going to have to give up my lousy attitude, which was 99% of the cause of my troubles as a waiter. I think what may have happened is that Dwight's message came back in time from 2014 to 1990, and I got it. And things changed quickly. All of a sudden I went from piles of pennies to fistfuls of dollars. And Plan B ended up working like a charm. Waiting tables allowed me to survive long enough in Houston to land that coveted on-air position. And I was on the air in Houston for 2 years. Life can be paradoxical. That's what I learned from this experience. Because who would have thought that sometimes in order to succeed, you have to give up in the midst of not giving up. Mr. Contest Master.